This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. My guest today is Kac Young. I asked Kac here to talk about her forays into the world of learning and how she has used her own learning to write 20 books. Kac Young has created a toolkit of self-help instruction for her readers and listeners.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. I am so excited to be here. I love Ventura and talking to people in Ventura. Well, that's just the best thing that could possibly be, isn't it?
Well, we're so happy to have you here today. Scanning down your most impressive resume makes me wonder if I haven't done enough with my own life.
Oh, you have.
Kac has 3 doctorates in natural health, naturopathy, and clinical hypnotherapy. In addition, she teaches workshops and guides clients in a variety of healing arts. Kac has written and directed for famous entertainment productions. Perhaps you might tell your listener about a few.
Oh my gosh, there have been so many. I started out in freelance television and worked my way up. I mean, I was a stage manager for Cher on her CBS series.
Cool.
I worked on Circus of the Stars. I graduated up the ladder to become a director for Circus of the Stars for a special that we did. And then I went on to produce General Hospital using my theatrical background. And then I went on to co-create the Showtime Comedy Club Network, plus 7 specials with all the comedy stars of the day. And then I directed Politically Incorrect. When you're a director or a producer for hire in the freelance business, you get the opportunity to meet people all around the world. And it was fun because for a while I was known as a director on the East Coast in New York and a producer on the West Coast. So I had to change hats like when I was on the plane coming back to each coast. But it was very fun, and I loved it. My last job in show business that was official, I was vice president of television production and development for Universal Studios Hollywood. So I switched chairs, and I was on the opposite side then, and I could develop programs for the studio. And it's always just been very wonderful. The people are amazing. The opportunities have been outstanding. And I've just loved every moment in television.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's talk first about your self-help books with such interesting titles as The Healing Art of Essential Oils, The 1-Minute Cat Manager. I'm very interested in that one. 21 Days to the Love of Your Life. Dancing with the Moon, Discover Your Spiritual Genius, and Chart Your Course. And many, many more. Which one is your favorite book and why, Kac?
Well, I always like to say that my favorite book is the one I'm writing now.
Oh, okay.
That's the absolute favorite one. No, I have, I think it's important for your listeners to know that I started out, of course, in television, but then when I was working very hard on a series, the stage manager, who was only 55, he dropped dead in front of me. In the morning.
Oh my gosh.
And he was a dancer. He was he exercised. He lived kind of like on Coca-Cola and candy bars, though. So when he dropped dead of a cardio event, I said to myself, if you want to survive in this industry and you want to be healthy and be prominent, you better take care of yourself. So it was then that I decided that I needed to explore the healing arts as well as the television arts. I mean, because I was female in a time when there were a lot of glass ceilings, I had to study twice as hard and be twice as good as my male counterparts. So I worked later and came in earlier and educated myself. So I realized that there was a tendency, or there was a probability, of working too hard and too much and too long. So I began to explore the healing arts. I studied hypnotherapy, I studied nutrition, I studied balance, I studied the chakras, I studied all the alternative ways that people were teaching and doing in the 80s so that I could live a long and happy life. So it really was about self-preservation. And then as I began to tell people about what I was doing, then they wanted to know more. So that's how the books got started, by request, really. Friends saying, oh, tell me more, I want to know more about that. So I said, all right, well, let me put it down in books. And that's really every book I have written answers a question or really takes on an interest that I've had. So I dabbled with essential oils for a while, but I didn't know what I was doing. So in teaching myself, I created a learning curve, which then brought me into more and deeper studies. And I attached myself to people that were smarter and better than I was at the given subject. So I learned from the best. I traveled around the world. I got to study with shamans. Every time I wasn't working on a television show, we have a thing called a hiatus. So I took advantage of the hiatus and I went somewhere and I studied with somebody and I learned something new. So after a while in my 40s, I kind of said, well, gosh, I have accumulated a body of knowledge. I don't want it to just go to waste. Let me put it in forms that can communicate to the rest of the world and make everybody else's life better too.
Well, thank you. I'm appreciating you all the more. Have you always liked to write? I mean, you told your story of how you got into the writing, but was writing something you did before?
Oh my gosh.
Prior?
Well, I remember being in Catholic school, and there was this one teacher that I won't mention her name, but Sister Mary, blah, blah, blah. And she told me that, well, my dear, you cannot write your way out of a paper bag. And I said, oh my goodness. No. So for a long time, I was kind of frozen. And then a lot of times people would find that my humor was entertaining, and I used my humor and I don't know, my outgoing nature to help talent not be frozen in front of the camera. And I invented a lot of shows for Procter & Gamble, but you have to work with talent. So I found that I was a good communicator. I was an effective communicator. So I used those skills and I put them into writing, and I had to kiss that curse goodbye from that one nun and just say, wait a minute, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can.
That was just one teacher's opinion.
Exactly. But, you know, you don't know that when you're impressionable and you're young. You learn that later. So in essence, she did me a favor, because I think I wasn't never arrogant, and I wasn't too self-confident that would prevent me from being authentic. And so I was able to write authentically, and I think that's what people like in my books, or that's what they've told me, is that they're very readable and understandable. So that makes me happy.
So you kind of use your own learning process and translate that into a book.
Exactly.
And how you learned it. And
what questions did I have when I was just beginning? So I answer those in my books for people so that they can build on their own knowledge and then branch out.
Right. So what makes someone a good learner? You sound like a great learner.
Well, you know, I suppose curiosity killed the cat. But I think being curious and having wonder about life. Ooh, how does that work? How does that grow? How would you build that? It's always fascinating for me. And so I get intrigued, I think, by subjects that I don't know anything about. And because I'm Irish, I'm fearless. So I tackle anything.
So you almost didn't become a writer because of criticism. Do you have any thoughts on how education could be improved?
Well, yes. And I think that no matter what you're teaching anybody or what you're conveying, do it in a positive, supportive way. There's no room for shame or blame or putting someone down. It doesn't matter how smart the teacher is, how not smart the teacher is, or that they have anything to prove. It's all about the person that you are educating, and your job is to communicate the information. And that's your only job. And make sure that it's heard and understood and integrated by the person on the other end, and done positively and with love.
Okay. So you've definitely found your voice as a writer. Could you give your listener a little synopsis of your writing process? I know you've touched on this, but how do you actually go about starting?
Well, I'm sure that my editor would prefer that I start with an outline. But I, do, I don't usually. Well, I have an idea, and it's the process that we were just talking about. It's how the subject matter evolves. How did I discover it? So I kind of take my own learning curve, and I start from there. And I think, okay, well, first of all, let's define the subject. Let's see what it's all about. Then let's go into some history of it. Let's find out what other people, cultures, societies thought about it. And then let's examine maybe some scientific background about it, something that has some substance. And then we'll branch out and talk about it, whatever it is, whether it's crystals or whether it's essential oils, Bach flowers, whatever the subject is. But I want people to have a grounding. I really believe that having a history, a background, and a grounding gives you a jumping off point, I would say.
How are you defining a grounding?
A grounding is just information and things that are understood by everyone else.
Baseline kind of.
Baseline of communication. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you do this process with your how-to books, so readers can easily understand it. So you're actually taking your reader along the process that you used to understand the material.
Yes, exactly. It's as if I'm sitting across from someone having a coffee or a tea, and they're asking me questions, and I'm doing my very best to explain to them the process. And usually you can tell by someone's eye contact, you could tell by them nodding if they're understanding it. And if they are, then you move on. So that's kind of how I feel. I want to be close to my reader. I want to be intimate with my reader intellectually. And I think that is the process by which that guides me. And then my editor comes in and says, no, you should do A over here and B over here and C over here. And I say, great. And so then we'll restructure it.
Right.
Having another set of eyes is a gift.
Right.
I don't consider it critical at all, but it's a wonderful help.
Right. It kind of helps you, it's part of the process for you to have another view.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what advice would you give your listener who wants to write a book?
Okay. So you have to get really serious about it. You have to immerse yourself in at least 2 to 3 hours a day of writing. Even if you're staring at a blank screen, something will come. You must trust your inside voice to come out through your fingers. You must do that. And you can't do that if you've got cats walking all over your computer, if you've got dogs nipping at your ankle.
A room of one's own.
Yes, you have to have your private cave, your private writing. It doesn't matter if it's down at the local coffee shop. That's fine too. But it's your time. And then I usually, if I get stuck, I just start to Google around a subject, a random subject, and get an inspiration. I once ended up writing about the entire Lenape Indian tribe and how they lost all of their possessions accidentally in a book that I was writing about wealth and prosperity. And I got off on this tangent, and it worked out to be the thing I needed. It was the image and the metaphor I needed to talk about storing up or preparing for the future. So you never know where you're going to get an inspiration, but it always comes to you if you trust. If you say, okay, it doesn't matter what you Google around and do, you just will find the piece of information that you need to hear in that moment that will make you start typing. And the other tip is write without editing. Do not edit your stuff until later.
Yeah.
You can always do that later. Just write. Get it out on the page. You'll have time to go back and deal with all of that later. Keep writing. It's from your heart. It's from your emotion. It's from your history. It's from your reality, your voice. Put that on the page, and then later on, it can be dealt with.
Okay. Wow. That's a very inspiring advice. trust, I think is the operant word there. Well, so which demographic do you write for? And, who is your audience? I mean, that's something you need to know before you start, really, isn't it?
Well, you see, that's a secret. I don't write for any specific group of people. I write for the people who have curiosity and wonder.
Oh, okay. So that's your demographic.
Yes, my demographic is pretty wide. Yeah. Well, and that they speak English, I think. They can read English. So it does narrow it down. Yeah. But anybody who's curious about a subject that I know something about, I just want to share it.
Uh-huh. Right. And you have the confidence to do that.
Yes, I do. I'm Irish, of course.
Okay.
We put ourselves out there.
Okay. So you've put your books in the genre of self-help. What need do self-help books fill?
Oh my gosh, we all need a little help. We all need a shoulder to cry on. We all need a little piece of advice. Some of us may have mothers and fathers that will help us with that. Sometimes we need to find a mother or father outside that, but we need mentors. We grow because someone inspires us. We grow because someone gives us a helping hand. And that's what my books are for the people who need a shot of vitamin B12, and they need something that will spur them on, egg them on, and encourage them, and give them the information. I think my books kind of satisfy a curious and wandering spirit, and so that's what they're there for. They're there to grab on, and perhaps they will read something in my book that will inspire them to go to greater heights and outdo me. And wouldn't that be wonderful? When the student becomes the teacher, yay.
Yep. Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to have to leave it right there for a moment and do a station ID. This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. We are talking to Kac Young, author, teacher, and master of the healing arts. Kac has written over 20 self-help books and also works as a practitioner in the healing arts. And we're back. So let's go back to a little more information about your books and the healing arts that you do. I wonder if you could give your listener a little overview of some of these topics, like healing crystals. What are they about?
Well, okay. So I was taught crystal energy by an amazing man, Frank Alper. And I just happened onto him in a seminar. He worked for IBM, and he was a scientist. He found that the power of crystal power in the computers, in the radios, in the lasers, was so extraordinary that he wanted to apply them to the healing arts. And so he did that. And I learned from him, first of all, again, rooted and grounded in the science of the atomic structure of the crystal itself. Mm-hmm. And then going out from there and how we can use it in our own healing, whether it just be mental healing or some physical healing, not to replace general medicine or Western medicine, but in as an accessory to, as a helper to. Crystals can help us relax. They can help us get over some fears. They can help us in many, many different ways. Of course, it's not the crystal doing the work. It is ourselves doing the work. It is our mind, body, and soul in harmony with the energy, the physical atomic energy of the crystal that's in the lattice structure of the crystal itself. When we work in tandem with that, then we really can achieve some wonderful results using those. That's why I teach people how to work with crystals. And I teach them 12 main crystals that they can use, the shapes that certainly work metaphysically to either contact other realms or to hone in on specific energy that we want, emotional, mental, physical, and things that help us in meditation. So I teach just 12 as a beginning step so people can master that, be confident, and then they can go on from there to learn more.
Okay. So another healing art is using essential oils. And I think a lot of people have heard about aromatherapy and essential oils. Could you give us a little background on that healing method?
Well, sure. Essential oils are plant essences, and they are natural. But just because they're natural, it doesn't mean that they aren't toxic or dangerous. Many essential oils are toxic, and if they are used unsafely, i.e., not diluting them, using improper dilutions for children, using them on pets or the elderly without proper knowledge, they can be harmful. So I teach people how to use them productively and carefully.
So what would you dilute an essential oil like, say, oregano oil with, which you mentioned is a hot one?
Oregano is a hot oil, and I don't recommend it at all unless you are really working with a certified aromatherapist and or a physician. But if you're using something like lavender or bergamot, something like that, or eucalyptus, tea tree, any of the regular, common oils, rosemary, you would dilute it with a carrier oil. And the carrier oil can be anything from sweet almond oil to jojoba oil. Some people like to use coconut oil. You never, ever ingest an essential oil. Ever, ever, ever. Even though people say, oh, a drop of peppermint will calm the stomach. Lemon will do this. No. You don't know where your essential oils came from. You don't know their toxicity level. You don't know what you're putting in your body. So never, ever ingest them unless you're with a medical doctor or a certified aromatherapist.
Sounds like good advice. So what about the Bach flower remedies? Tell us about those.
Well, I love Dr. Edward Bach. In the 20s and 30s, he was a renowned biology doctor. He was an MD in London, and he created some inventions that we still use today in treating internal conditions. So he also realized, because he was a great observer of nature, he realized that these Bach flower remedies could help alter a personality-driven disease. By that, I mean he took all of humankind and he brought them into 7 different types. Each type has its own set of diseases that it creates, each personality type. So he decided that he could alter the personality, things that are overactive and underactive of the personality by using the vibrational healing in certain flowers. So he went out into the mountains. He brought the flower essences down in the form of petals and needles and parts of the flower that he would then submerge in spring water, allowing that vibration to be transferred to the solution of the water, which he would then bottle. And he would use those remedies on his clients to help them heal, because he believed that really all disease is a spiritual disease, and it's in the mind, and it has to do with the body-mind not being in sync. And when it's not in sync, then disease creeps in. So he treats really the emotional body first, and then watches to see the development of good health in the physical body as a result.
Okay, so what Bach flower remedy would you give if somebody's suffering from anxiety? Or would it depend on the personality?
Yes, exactly, Kathy. It depends on the personality. Are they suffering from anxiety because they are worried too much, because they are controlling too much, because they are threatened by something, because they are experiencing grief or loss? You have to look at all those things in order to decide what Bach flower remedy you're going to do. One of my latest books was Natural Cat Healing, using Bach flower remedies, combining behavioral therapy. So if you want to help your pets, they're purer than we humans are, because they respond to vibrations more realistically. I mean, more easily. So you can heal your cats. You can help your cats through emotional traumas as well. And we don't know generally how deep their emotions run, and they have emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Cats and dogs as well. So usually using Bach flowers on them is great. When they have separation anxiety, there are 3 or 4 remedies that you could use for them. But I never diagnose without seeing the person. I never
Or the
give
cat.
a recommendation. Right, exactly. Or listen to the caregiver for the cat describe the behavior, and then I can do that. But I never just randomly say, oh, use this for that, because I haven't considered the whole.
Right.
And I want to consider the whole in every case.
Okay. So do you see the healing arts as complementary to Western medicine?
Absolutely. I think that when we have the mindset to heal ourselves, see, the body wants to do nothing better than heal. It always moves in its actions towards healing and restoring itself, towards that healing and restoration. So we get in the way by not helping the body. Let's say the body really thrives on particular nutrients and we deprive the body of that. Well, we are getting in the way. We're harming the healing process. So hand in hand with Western medicine, I think Western medicine is brilliant with its diagnosing, with its ability to find out the core of the problem, what's causing X, Y, and Z. I mean, you go to a doctor with a sore throat, there could be 10 or 12 different reasons. And so the diagnostic abilities of Western medicine helps us heal, because it might be the sore throat may be caused by a deep emotional problem. Maybe that can be helped with an essential oil, a Bach flower, or a crystal, psychotherapy, maybe, who knows what it can be helped by. So we have to examine all the possibilities, not just readily grab a drug, a pharmaceutical, and say, boom, okay, this is done. What if there's a deeper cause, a different reason that we need to unearth and find the health within ourselves? See, it's like a lotus flower in ourselves, and we open it up, and health and well-being emerge from us through our minds and through our health itself.
Okay. So do you think some people go or come to you as a practitioner or other practitioners because they want more help than Western medicine can provide? Or do they want to avoid the side effects of pharmaceuticals?
I think they come to me for all reasons. They come to me because they are in some kind of pain. Sometimes it's mental pain. Sometimes it's emotional pain. Sometimes it's physical pain. And I will never tell a person, don't go see your doctor. I will always ask them if they have seen their doctor, what the doctor has to say, and then we'll go deeper. You know, I will probably ask them if they're happy with hypnosis, and if so, I'll take them into a hypnotherapy session where the conscious mind steps out of the way so the subconscious mind can talk, and we'll find out deeper truths. I'll sometimes use a chakra cleansing. We'll rebalance the energetic wheels on a person in their system, and that goes back to the Vedas, 5,000 years BCE. So there's a lot of things that we can do in that area, and when I look at a person, I'll ask them what they want, what they're comfortable with, how far do they want to go, and how much do they want to have responsibility for their own healing.
And we're going to have to wrap it up right there. Kac, I'd love to have you come back. I have many more questions. Thank you so much for sharing your experience in the healing arts. We've been talking to Kac Young, writer, teacher, and master of the healing arts. This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good.